Hi guys, I'm Saumya and I'm back again with another video. I hope you're all well and safe. So if you are new here, then I make a lot of bookish content on this channel. So if you are a book lover and a reader or would like to become one, then do hit that subscribe button and don't forget to click on the bell icon. So in today's video, I am going to talk about my top 12 books that I plan on reading in 2022. These books are on my priority list. Now, honestly, 22 books that I plan to read in 2022 would have been a much better title. But I want to create a realistic TBR for myself because I know that I'm one of those people who will definitely come across new books that I will want to check out. And I don't want a predetermined TBR to stop me from checking out new titles. So I'm creating a realistic one where I'll read one book from this list per month in 2022, and that's how it's going to go. And then I'll discover other titles as well. Let me know in the comments which books are on your priority list that you're planning to read in 2022. I look forward to your comments and let's begin this video. The first book is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. So I discovered Donna Tartt's work in 2021 when I listened to the audiobook of The Secret History by her. That book was absolutely captivating. So I want to check out more books by her, and I have The Goldfinch, so I really want to read it in 2022. So this is the story of a 13-year-old boy named Theo who survives a bombing in which his mother dies. So Theo is taken in by the family of a wealthy friend in New York, and he doesn't know how to live in this new lifestyle. And also he is not able to forget about his mother. And this is a story narrated by Theo in first person, and it's a story about how he gets drawn into the criminal underworld. So that's all I know about this story, but since I really love The Secret History, I have really high expectations from The Goldfinch as well. Next book is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. So this is the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. So I had read The Handmaid's Tale back in 2020, and I even made a review of that book on my channel. If you want to check it out, the link will be here in the cards. So the events in The Testaments are taking place 15 years after the events of The Handmaid's Tale. I remember at the time when I had read The Handmaid's Tale and when I had made the review, I had mentioned how I wasn't ready to read The Testaments because The Handmaid's Tale was such a heavy read for me. I tried reading The Testaments in 2021, but right at the time when I decided to read this book, I contracted COVID and things completely went crazy, and I just kept this book away. Now I'm planning on reading this book in 2022. So as I said, the events in this book are taking place 15 years after the events of The Handmaid's Tale, and this book has been narrated by 3 women. Aunt Lydia, who you will know if you have read The Handmaid's Tale, and then there is Agnes, who lives in Gilead. Again, if you have read The Handmaid's Tale, you will know what Gilead is. And then there is Daisy, a woman living in Canada. The next one is Club You to Death by Anuja Chauhan. So this is Anuja Chauhan's first attempt at writing a murder mystery set in the Lutyens, Delhi, which for the uninitiated is the poshest area of Delhi. So that's very cool. So a personal trainer is found dead at the Delhi Turf Club, and initially everybody thinks that it's an accident, but then it's made clear that it was a murder in cold blood. So ACP Bhavani is appointed to find out who murdered him, and then there are 2 people who help him with this case. So one of them is this wealthy girl and the other one is a crusader for human rights. I'm looking forward to reading this book. I have heard mixed reviews of this book, but my past experiences with Anuja Chauhan books have been pretty good, so I'm still looking forward to reading it in 2022. Okay. So the next book is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So a little bit about this edition that I have. So this is a critical edition, which means that it contains the original novel Frankenstein by Mary Shelley that came out in 1818, and in addition to that, it also has analysis and reviews of Frankenstein, but I'm only going to be reading the novel, which is this part of the book. So this is the story of a young scientist named Victor Frankenstein who creates a monster. So yes, if you have the misconception that the monster is called Frankenstein, no. The monster is not called Frankenstein. Frankenstein is the name of the scientist who creates the creature. Alright, so I'm already kind of reading this one because the genre of this book is gothic novel, horror and science fiction, and right now it's winters. So I feel it's the perfect time to read this one. So this is literally going to be my first read out of all the books that I'm talking about in this video in 2022. The next book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So the only reason that I haven't read this book so far in my life is that I do not own it. And if you have read this book, please feel free to leave a comment about how great this book is so that I feel even worse for not having read it. Anyway, so this is a story about Jane Eyre, and when the story begins, she's just 10 years old and she lives with her aunt and her cousins who mistreat her. So this is a story of her life, her difficulties, her struggles, but this is a romance novel, so it's also a story of her love life. So whenever people talk about this book, it's always referred to as a book that was way ahead of its time, and this is considered to be like one of the most popular classics of all times, and I am definitely going to read it in 2022. So the next two books that I'm going to talk about are both by Murakami. So this one is First Person Singular, which is a collection of 8 short stories by Haruki Murakami, and the next one is 1Q84 by him, and this edition that I own has the complete trilogy. It has the 3 volumes of this story. So 1Q84 talks about the fictionalized year of 1984, if that makes any sense. 1Q84 is basically the year that is parallel to 1984. So that's very confusing, but that's literally what this book is about. It's considered to be dystopian. The next book is Delhi, a novel by Khushwant Singh. So this book makes me very nostalgic because it has been quite a while since I read a book by Khushwant Singh. It has been such a long time, and I've had this book for quite a while as well. All this time I have read books about Delhi, books based in Delhi, and this is the only book that I have that needs to be read. So I am going to read it in 2022. This book is fiction and it takes the reader through the rich history of Delhi because it spans over a period of 600 years. The narrator meets different people from different timelines because he can travel through time, space and history. So he meets princesses, sultans, saints, etc. And he has a mistress called Bhagmati who he always returns to. The next book is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. So this is a story of 12 different people, mostly women, mostly black, and the story is taking place in Britain. So it follows the lives of these 12 different characters and their journeys, and the story gives these 12 characters an individual voice of their own. So I started reading this book a while back, but again something happened and my reading got disrupted, so I had to put it down. So I am planning on picking it up in 2022 from where I left off. The next book is And Another Thing by Eoin Colfer. So this is the 6th and the final book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series by Douglas Adams. So Douglas Adams wrote the first 5 books, but before he could write the 6th book, he passed away in 2001. So Eoin Colfer wrote the 6th and the final book in the series, and this one came out in 2009. So I recently finished Mostly Harmless, which is the 5th book in the series, and this is just like one and the final book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, and I want to read it. I want to read the concluding book, even if it has been written by a different author. This is something that I don't usually do. I just like to read the original author. I somehow don't feel that it's right for me to read a book written in this one particular franchise by a new author. That doesn't seem right to me. But since this is only one and the final installment in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, I am going to read it in 2022. Next book is Blankets by Craig Thompson. So this is a graphic novel, guys, and the reason that I want to read it in 2022 is that I did not read a single graphic novel in 2021. So I want to compensate for that. So I have decided to read this really thick, big graphic novel in 2022. So this is autobiographical. In this graphic novel, Craig Thompson has talked about his own life, his childhood and his early adulthood. The next book is The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. So this is a story about a young architect named Howard Rourke who wants to achieve success on his own terms. Now obviously there is a lot more to this story, but as someone who hasn't yet read this book, I'm going for the simplest explanation. So I'm definitely going to talk about this book in detail once I read it, and this one has been on my TBR for quite a while as well. The only reason I haven't read this book is that this particular edition that I own doesn't look very comfortable, but this is the only edition that I have, so I am going to finally read it in 2022.